And we can see that the Soviets have, of course, set up their defensive line on the Stalin line, with also a little bit of a defense around Mosul with the airbase there in the swamps, which are going to be very difficult to take. It is May, so there is a bunch of mud currently, more in eastern Soviet Union rather than in the west. And that's going to be turning into summer, so Germany is going to have a little bit of a time frame to get their counterattack going. We've got the Italians. In fact, it looks like it's just Germany over on this front. We've got a couple of German heavy tanks moving in. And in fact, we should do a quick comparison to see how many heavy tanks exactly we can expect. So the Germans have got 22 heavy tanks with probably 2 Amtrak units, and these Amtraks are used to push across the rivers to actually get the bridgeheads going there. Meanwhile, the Soviets' own armor divisions are looking like they have 24 heavy tanks, and it's just heavy. So it's 24 against 22 with the 2 Amtraks. Oh no, sorry, 20 with 2 Amtraks. So the Soviets do have 4 additional heavy tank units. Depending on how heavy the Amtrak units are, they usually are pretty heavy, just with the extra. So the question here is whether the Soviets are going to be able to hold, and whether they can hold Moscow and basically give enough time for the USA to enter the fray. And there we go. War with Russia has been completed, and we should see Barbarossa declared any minute now. And this is very much going to be the calm before the storm. Do we have Hungarian aircraft prowling the airways around there? No, we don't. We actually have 7,000 planes set on intercept. There is a huge air battle, which is almost entirely in the favour of their opponent, although they do have very, very good efficiency. In fact, both sides have pretty good efficiency. And because they're not doing air superiority, I think that's why they have the red air here. But that doesn't matter so much. They're mostly just trying to target the bombers that have apparently been causing some problems. And I'm guessing that a bunch of these planes will switch sides. But there are a lot of aircraft being lost on both sides. This is a colossal air battle, with the Axis losing a lot of aircraft. 70 to 60, 80 to 60, 100... 80 to 50, 100 something, 70 to 50. So generally the Axis trading poorly here. But as Schmoke said earlier, they did have more planes and Slough, and I just saw giving a massive number of gift subs. I'm sure that a bunch of gift subs and things have come in. I don't have the pop-ups up at the moment because I'm also streaming on the Paradox channel, but I'll be sure to do a shout out to everyone that has generously given something to me during the stream at the end. So thank you very much for the subs and everything coming in. Very much appreciate that. So still the war not yet being declared. We are paused. Probably waiting for the declaration to happen. Germany is actually a little bit low on steel. That's an interesting one. Stalin line go burr, indeed. Clicking on Poland. I want to see this from Germany's perspective. I'm interested in the huge air battle that's going on over France. Like, why have they chosen to do that right now? Oh dear. I think we're going to crash out because Schmokes isn't here. And he's not going to be here to unblack flag himself. I'm sorry, Schmokes' chat. I'm sorry. You'll have to come to either my channel or to the Paradox Interactive channel to see what's happening, because his screen's about to go bye-bye. Just waiting for everyone to hot join in.
There you go. If it ain't Dutch, it ain't much. And yeah, it is the average toy for MP experience. Welcome to the clown car. As always, we're sitting in the multiplayer lobby. Somehow you always end up here. It's a beautiful place. It's a place where you can make a lot of new friends. Usually very exciting stuff that happens out here. They're actually being relatively quiet. Is it maybe because Barb is about to happen? Who knows? Although the Axis are now starting to speak up. I don't think we are going to call anything. We're just going to wait until we actually see what the teams are made of. Alright, let's hop in. I mean, this is usually the most exciting part. And like we said before, like Italy had some very interesting strategies. Now, considering they still hold these islands, I don't want to say anything, but I think they might have been stunted by the Royal Navy. Have they moved yet? I'm actually curious about that. So, okay. The Royal Navy has decided to def stack. Remember that they had those two separate task forces, like the one with the carriers and the separate one?
Yep.
They are now sitting in the... Oh, and I think this is Plymouth. There they are. They're chilling in Plymouth, and there is nothing covering the... Actually, I think they might have a supremacy order on, like, half the planet. Or these submarines.
I'm not seeing any orders on them. Oh man, yeah, they've merged the submarines with the Death Stack fleet. That's such a bad idea, because the admirals use completely different traits.
They do have blue orders on the West Indian Ocean, Far Eastern Indian Ocean, so I'm not sure what the idea is here.
Blue orders means that they have the order set up, but nothing assigned to it.
Yeah, exactly, but I'm wondering what potentially they might have assigned to it. 'Cause I'm hovering over their main navy, and it seems like they've actually got nothing in the channel. Access level of void, and they have no orders planned on it, so they're not actually covering the channel. If the Axis were to do something daring right now.
So the blues are where the submarines used to be. So I think they've just moved the Death Stack into the submarine stack.
Yep. And in the meantime, like we said, Barb has started, and of course there are no Russian troops in the on the Polish border. They're all chilling on the Stalin line. So what the Axis are currently doing is just slowly marching up there. You know, they're not in a hurry. They know that the Russians aren't going to come looking for them. So, you know, why rush ahead? You know, we'll just have a good time. We'll just slowly drive over there. Also, I love that the icon on the Amph Panzer. They decided to use a shark logo on the Panzers. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I usually use the Viking axe for the marine divisions when I have them.
I wonder why.
Strange.
I don't know. I usually end up like picking the weirdest icon I can find. You know, why would I try to attract attention to my tanks by giving them some type of intimidating icon when I can just have a unicorn? They'll never see it coming.
Oh, if I see someone with a unicorn, I know for sure that's their tank division.
Yeah, I think I might have given myself away with that one. No, actually, usually I don't even bother. I just let them keep the tank icon. I mean, I really don't care about it.
Yeah, same. It's usually only if I'm shifting within a template that I will change, like if I'm upgrading units over time.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, obviously you don't want to use the same icon for different types of divisions that can go wrong. I also like the fact that the Germans, I don't think, have realized that they've encountered Soviets in the marshes and they're just charging into the... Oh, there you go. They've realized. You gotta... Oh, the attrition I'm fighting in the marshes is just horrible. Look at that, 50%.
Yeah, I think this is the first time I've actually seen a defense around Mosir, and they're doing it because the air base is there, and also because marshes are a pain. But I quite like that. It's broken up the line a little. Although it's going to provide a massive salient, which could have multiple attacks from multiple directions.
Well, that's actually literally what happened in their practice game yesterday. So the Kaiserreich Weekly guys literally used this strategy. They were defending the marshes with infantry, and they ended up getting encircled by tanks. So you might see the same happen here, but I think that for the moment, the Germans or the Axis are just happy to move up, take ground, and, you know, kind of organize. Just on the border, get their planning bonus set up, get their everything bonus set up, and then start to try and take out Russian divisions. I mean, you know, they're not in a rush. They don't have a D-Day looming.
So in the south, having a good time. We've got Romanian Marines pushing across the river and actually beating the Soviet infantry that's down there guarding it. Well, we've got German tanks pushing in to force the Soviet tanks back, and there we go, river crossing established.
Yep, and that might actually end up in an encirclement because the Russians have decided to pull their tanks back. And I wonder, they have got rid of all their negative modifiers, right? Yeah, so not sure why they're not deciding to fight those Marines, but they have literally given away Sevastopol, the Crimea. Like, look at that, those Romanian Marines are just walking through.
There must be some really good units. I want to see what that template is.
I think they were just 14-4s. It looks like they are. And this is the weird part. I think the Russians are trying to roach this. They've got a small line of infantry down at Yalta, but after these infantry get pulled or pushed out of Kerch, there's nothing behind that defending it.
An interesting... Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, it looks like they're literally just willing to give away their oil source in Baku, because they're not defending this at all.
I like one thing that they're doing here is the amphibious tank units they've actually given to the Romanians as an expeditionary. So all of the river crossings are going to be done by Romania with the Marines.
I honestly, I don't even think it's that. I think they're just giving it away because they want to have more hands in the micro. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if the Soviets can spawn 3 million tanks. You know, if the Germans can have, or the Axis players can have like 4 tanks being controlled in part by like one player, and then have another player with another 4, etc., and so on and so forth. They have a lot more hands on mice clicking, you know, the right mouse button onto tiles. And you know, don't forget the Soviets only have 3 players, and it's relatively simple for the Axis to get like 5 or 6 players to micro on this front, and out-microing the Russians is just going to result in them not being capable of responding to the attacks in time. And it's already happening down south. Like,
yeah.
Look at these Soviet heavies like at Trashka and at Chernigov. They're completely like they're 70% strength, and they're getting right-clicked by the Germans. And this might actually be a Soviet tank loss. They're moving in for the encirclement. We've got German tanks on both sides. They haven't broken the river yet, but they are now moving in. And there are 2 Russian tanks on the edge of the salient. Oh, that's a really big stack for the Germans. It's kind of bad. 8 tanks in one tile. You don't want to see that.
Where's that?
It is in the northern side of the salient. They have 5 tanks on one tile and 3 on the one next to it. That's not ideal. And I'm just going to pan over to the Allies real quick, and it does seem like the Allies are willing to respond.
Oh, one thing you missed, there was an absolutely enormous air battle going over France. It was like 8,000 against 8,000.
And that is probably in preparation of, well, D-Day, or, you know, just trying to lure the Allied Air Force away from being, or sorry, the Axis Air Force away from being able to just, you know, fly undefeated over Russia. And that's a good question. Let's have a look at the Russian tank general. I mean, they do have Adaptable and Rokossovsky.
Yeah, the air battle is still ongoing, and both sides are just losing massive numbers of planes. Although at the moment, this is still very much the Allies getting the advantage here. 70 planes against 50, 70 against 50, 100 against 60, 80 against 60, 80 against 60.
In the meantime, the Soviet tanks narrowly escaped the encirclement in the south. There was just some infantry that got killed. But this is key about Barbarossa. A lot of people will be tunnel visioned on killing the enemy tanks. But in reality, and this is something you saw in the game versus Bruderkrieg, they only had 72 infantry divisions prepared, but they had something like 40 tank divisions. The Germans only had 24 tank divisions, but ended up winning because they killed... Oh, there goes the first Soviet tank down in the south. And this is key. Killing tanks is obviously the priority, but if you can thin out their numbers of infantry, they can't hold their lines, and the Soviets are already struggling to have infantry divisions in their lines. I'm looking at tiles with only 1 division on it, and all their divisions are moving. They're losing entrenchment, they're not building up defensive bonuses. And even up here in the north, near Smolensk, there are no Russian units on these tiles. If the Germans want to, they can just push in. Now, the Soviets are going to try for an encirclement, but they're getting double combated, and then once again their tanks get right-clicked. They just do not have the stats on these tanks. They're absolutely getting wrecked by the Germans. Oh, and here in the south, is near Crimea, there's another Russian tank encircled, and it's another dead tank, because there's no way they're going to get this one back. And in the meantime, they might actually get a secondary encirclement in here, but it looks like the tanks might get away.
And the Romanians again pushing the line further and further up to make reinforcement that much more difficult. And yeah, that force just south of Zaporozhye is just going to get taken out. That tank is very low in organisation. It's got numerous units of infantry surrounding it. The amphibious tanks are moving south, probably to add the extra firepower. And that is a Soviet casualty right there.
Yep, and approximately 5 Soviet tanks already died. They just reinforced them by spawning another. But all these tanks are green. They are green, and you do not want to have that against these German tanks. I mean, if you look at the stats right now, the German tanks are doing so well. 1,700 breakthrough, and they tried to encircle the Germans, but they're just getting pushed back, and Smolensk is about to fall. These Germans are relentless, and their tanks in the south, or rather this northern side of the salient, are now just free to go south. If they right-click the other part of the salient, all these Russian divisions are just dead. There's nothing they can do about it.
I'm astonished by how fast these battles... I can't even click on the bubble before the fight's over.
Yeah,
I'm trying. Oops,
he
just died.
German tanks. Yep. Like, literally, I just saw... Here you have a tank battle, and all I saw for the moment is that these Soviet tanks... I mean, they do have a decent amount of breakthrough, but the Germans just have more. Like, you're looking at 1,300 breakthrough in the Soviets, and the Germans are like, hey, you know what? We've got more because we've got better generals. We're on 1,600. And just the stats are not on the Soviet side. In the meantime, if you go into the stockpiles, the Soviets are already through the stockpile. Minus 1.1k heavies, minus 1.5k mechanized. And this is why I said you really got to watch out for Shadow, because he likes to do his defeat in detail. And the Germans still have 600 heavy tanks in stockpile, 1.5k mechanized, and 12.5k motorized. They are nowhere near depletion.
And the line just keeps on buckling further and further. They're well across the river and now within... I'm not going to say in sight of Moscow, but there are no rivers left. You can go entirely by land. There's a big forest here outside of Kursk.
Speaking of that salient, if you're checking left or west of Bryansk, that line is growing thinner and thinner, and the Germans are trying to exploit it. They're actually pushing away the Soviet tanks in order to create space for the infantry to just move in. Although they are finding themselves in some less than good... Oh no, they've got another 6 stack of tanks, and that's ruining their supply, and that's why they're currently having issues. The Germans were doing very well, but right now, they need to get their act together. They've got 6 tanks in one pile, and they're ruining their own supply. That's not good.
And it looks like the Germans are very much pushing north now, so they've broken into the east. They don't seem to be wanting to go down into the Caucasus to threaten Baku. They're just going for Moscow. They see that the initiative is on their side, and they're just making advantage of that.
Oh no! The Soviets actually finally had a German tank encircled, and the Germans broke it, and they counter-encircled the Soviets. And rather than getting a German tank killed, their own tank is dying now. Oh no! Oh, the double combat coming in for the Germans, who immediately push the Soviet counterattack away, and that's another dead tank. The attrition is definitely not on the side of the Soviets right now. The Soviets are trying to push the salient on the northern side, but... And it's once again that 6 stack of German tanks. Germany, please split up these tanks. You are ruining your own game. You're doing so well. I'm just going to have another look at the Allies, and I'm seeing more and more invasions pointed at Normandy, and I'm seeing a lot of divisions with, I think, 6% attrition. Yep, the training. The Allies are getting ready, but they need to hurry this along.
See, this is my problem with Moscow being so far east. So much pressure is put onto the Soviets, and all they need to do is lose Moscow and the game's done. It's over.
And the worst part about this is, if you go to the Japanese... They're not even at war yet. They're expanding Manchurian railways. In this rule set, they're allowed to stay out of this war until 1942, and I think that they are committed to it. The best thing the Japanese can do right now, unironically, is not join the war. For the simple reason that every day they're not in the war, the United States does not have war economy, they don't have total mob, they don't have the ability, and the US is saving up political power to get total mob. They're sitting on 360, but they're limited to partial mob. And, I mean, they are building, once again, the big bobs. They're building heavy tank 3s, but the problem is they're building them on a license with a 45% reduction, and the Soviets are just not going to get enough. I think they're lend-leasing the Soviets, but it's not going to help. It's too little too late.
Let's actually take a look at that. What are the Soviets receiving in terms of diplomatic assistance? So they are getting guns from India and guns from Mexico, but nothing from the US at all. Nada.
Nope, but the US is lend-leasing them to somebody because he's on minus 13,000. So is he lend-leasing them or is he training something? He's literally on minus 16,000. Oh yeah, it is from lend-lease. Let's see who he's lend-leasing. He's lend-leasing Mexico. The US is lend-leasing his heavy tanks to Mexico. What is Mexico doing with them?
That's what I'm wondering.
I mean, Mexico has 6 undersupplied heavy tanks sitting in the UK, which are currently attritioning. So I think these are, yeah, of course they are for D-Day. And I'm looking at mechanized here. Why? I don't like this play from the Allies. You want to focus on D-Day. You want to focus on landing. Why not put amph mechanized in this? That might be a little bit of a misplay from the Allies, but they're probably relying on their infantry marines to actually do the job for them. In the meantime, though, doom grows ever closer for the Soviets, who in the meantime have lost another 4 tanks. Oh dear, this is not going well for them.
Just double checking to see if the Axis have any kind of ships that they can put in the English Channel to basically blunt any naval invasion. But no, Germany's actually lost the vast majority of their ships at the moment. So it's going to be a pretty much uncontested landing. Oh, but there's a massive cutoff about to happen with the swamp salient being cut off by the German heavy tanks. Currently trying to get a pincer going.
And while that is happening, up in the north, the Soviets are about to actually get a tank encircled by Finland. Finland is pushing on Leningrad, and Leningrad is not holding.
And there it is. The encirclement is done. Now they just need to widen it, which they're doing. There are now 4 tiles corridor.
Yeah,
and all of the units caught in Mosir and Gomel are just dead.
And this is such a bad play from the Soviets. They should realize they should cut and run. There is no way you're saving these infantry divisions, yet they're pushing in with tanks from the north. And these tanks are only guarded by a single infantry division. They have actually managed to encircle the Germans momentarily, but I think that the Germans are just going to be able to run in. They're not going to be able to kill them fast enough. And here you go, counterattacks coming in, and the German tanks are safe. And now the Germans are going to be able to encircle these Soviet tanks who pushed out too far. They went too far, a bridge too far. It's plains, but if there was a bridge, they would have gone too far because these 2 Soviet tanks are also amazingly absolutely getting destroyed. And there they go. And meantime, like we talked about Baku, there's just no defense here, and it's the Bulgarians! The Bulgarian infantry is just pushing through Baku. They are not doing Like they are definitely not letting down here, or letting us down rather. The Bulgarians are just pushing on through, and I wonder in the meantime the Iraqis. So unfortunately, the Iraqi camels are not actually going on a journey. They're just holding the Allied forces in check in Africa. They haven't pushed them at all. They're just chilling here.
The Italians have taken Morocco, so Western Africa is now pretty much secured by the Axis. The Iraqis are just holding the southern front in Ethiopia, but yeah, no real pressure being exerted.
And you know what the best thing about this is? Because they hold the entirety of the Mediterranean, there is no risk of Husky at all. It is impossible for the Allies to naval invade. So the Italians have no coast guard at all in the entirety of Italy. Every single infantry division is now in Normandy. The Allies have one hell of a job ahead of them if they want to even have a chance at saving Russia's ass, because Russia is not having a good time. They are losing infantry left, right, and center. They're down on their tanks. And here you have the Germans. They still have 23 tank divisions, and they've got converts ready here. They've got trained converts ready. And the USSR is down to 19 tank divisions versus 23. And there goes Leningrad. And here the Finns, they're pinning 11 divisions, and they're going to be able to get out of here.
Yeah, 11's a crazy amount. And they're just holding the line everywhere else. And in fact, the Soviets, I think, are over emphasizing how many troops they have up against Finland. When I first saw that Finland was a player, I was really questioning why. Well, we're seeing why. Because it holds up just such a huge number of Soviet units. Yep.
And to be fair to the Soviets here, they have... No! Argos has done it again! He's done it again! We're looking at Italian cavalry, which has landed in Siberia! And instead of landing next to a port, he's landed in the middle of nowhere. And here he goes again, the legend from Italy. He just landed troops again in Siberia, and he's pushing through.
I was literally just looking at Archangel to see if he'd started an attack there to support the Finns. I was like, oh no, there's no one there. They were like, he's just landed. I was like, no, he hasn't. Didn't look far enough east.
And that's the best part about it. The Russians knew they actually put troops up in the port here, but what they didn't realize is that Italy never even looked at that part of Russia. They were just like, you know what, we're going to go as far east as possible. And hold on, I want to see this. I'm 90% sure this is what he did, but let's check his production or his building queue. Yep, we've got a port being built in Salakard. And soon, in a few days, on the 3rd of September, while there are no Soviet units anywhere near, he's going to be able to supply these units, and these horses are going to start roaming. And there are more Italian invasions incoming.
Yeah, and there's not even a front line established around that beachhead. The Soviets aren't aware that this has occurred.
And this is the best part. Those horse divisions are called "This is where the fun begins." Now this is pod racing.
Meanwhile, Stalingrad has fallen. Baku has been cut off completely by the Bulgarians. So the oil is about to run out. And Finland is pushed across the Leningrad River. They are now pushing from the north.
The Russian divisions are... Unfortunately for the Russians, they are falling left, right, and center. They're still on 19 tanks, but their infantry number keeps decreasing and decreasing. And now they are just unable to cover these fronts. I'm seeing massive gaps starting to happen everywhere. And this is the strength of the Axis. If they aren't pushed by the Allies, if they don't put pressure on them, if they don't take away some of the BARP micro, the Axis can just go ham. Like, don't forget, there are only 3 players in the USSR. While there are, I don't know, like, what, 6 or 7 players in the Continental Axis? Those are way more hands, and the Allies are not doing their job. Where is D-Day? Where is D-Day? If I was the leader of the USSR right now, I would go into the Allies channel and just keep repeating that question until they send something.
D-Day, question mark. D-Day, question mark. D-Day, question mark. I mean, they've got the plan set up, but D-Day, question mark.
Mm-hmm. And there you go. Two panzers got encircled, but the micro on the Axis, I'm gonna say it again, it's just so good. They actually managed to they force retreated. That's actually a very bad play by the
Japan just declared war on the United States, so the US is now going to get a little bit from that side, but the US is now going to be entering the war, but I strongly suspect this is too little too late. Like, the US just doesn't have the time to muster the force they need to go and save Russia.
Well, in that regard, it was smart from the U.S. to lend these heavy tanks to the Mexicans. The Mexicans were able to pre-deploy, and they are now ready to... I think this is actually what they might have been waiting for, so that they could get those heavy tanks in, so that they could actually do some damage. But the reality is, if you look over, there are already some German tanks here. Not many. The way Shadow plays, he does like to invest heavy into, getting his tanks and using them on BARP for as long as he can while there's no threat. He has his converts ready, but if the Allies want to do something, now is their shot. Like, well, there are only 2 tanks here, but they're going to move now. They're going to have to move now or it's over.
They have to, absolutely. And looking at the air war, it's purely Allied aircraft on the European front. So I'm not sure where the Axis... Oh, the Axis is clearly on the Russian front right now.
I think you could say that, yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, in the meantime, I want to look at Malaya. Malaya, they have decided not to defend the Malayan front line. Instead, they are defending the jungle and the hill tiles. We're looking at 40 whiffs on the Australian side, but they only just stopped training. They have no entrenchment at the moment in the organization. So if the Japanese move fast, then... Oh, this is even more critical. The Allies have no airplanes in Singapore. Were they not prepared for this?
Clearly not. I think they've been so focused on the massive air battles going on over France that they're just not deployed anywhere else. And a large portion of the Allied aircraft, I think, is still in France.
Yep, and now you're seeing the strength of building all those little zeros as the Japanese. The Japanese have full air superiority. I'm looking at 2,000 friendly planes here in southern Siam, and I'm gonna tag over just to the Japanese so I can see what they actually have here. And yep, this is exactly what I thought they would do. 1,500 tactical bombers poised to strap bomb Malaya, and what they're gonna do is they're gonna strap bomb that airport down. And I'll bet you that they currently have. Yep, there you go. Airports as their strategic priority for bombing, and those airports are going to go down, and the Allies will not be able to ever regain air superiority. The second those airports go down, it is GG, and Singapore's gone. And I don't like the fact they weren't prepared for that. That's a misplay on the Allies' part.
Well, the Allies are just so laser focused on Europe. They've got a large number of aircraft. I'm going to have to check on Canada again because my famously bad memory is at play. But they've got 1,400 strat bombers just bombing the living daylights out of northeast Germany, completely uncontested. But Germany doesn't care. Germany's well on the way to Moscow.
And here we are back. And okay, so everybody's been called in so that the there you go, so that there's no unfair advantage. Fortunately, no fighting had begun yet. But I'm just going to click on the Malaya tile, and I think this airport's going to disappear. It's already 3 levels damaged. This airport is going to go before they can even do anything. And in the meantime, if you look at the north, Finland and Germany are about to meet. They have already met.
Yep.
Spanish medium tanks coming in, and they just linked up the lines, and there is a giant pocket in Estonia that's, yeah. I don't think the Russians are going to be able to save those troops. They are gone. They're done for. The Italians, in the meantime, are flooding in more horses, I think, and they've built their port.
Bulgaria, meanwhile, has taken Baku, so that's the Soviet oil gone. And there are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiles before Moscow.
And in the meantime, we've got the Soviet numbers that keep attritioning. They only have 17 tanks left. They are actually training convert divisions, I think. In order to, they have 50 whips. They're going to try to get those out and then make them into tanks, but 17 heavy tank divisions left, and they don't have a stockpile. They've got minus 1.2k tanks. They're down on infantry equipment. And are we seeing new prioritization in their production lines? No, they're still overproducing mechanized, and they only have 52 factories left on tanks. I don't think they're realizing they're attritioning military factories like no tomorrow. That number's gone. Sorry.
I was just going to say, chat's asking how many AAs did the Axis have in France, and the answer was 0. None in France, none in Germany.
Oh, damn. And here you have the Spanish medium tanks, and this is the best part. I think the Soviets I think they're just overwhelmed. I think they're not sure what to do at this point. This is one of the most difficult positions to be in as a Soviet player. You lost your oil. You are losing a significant part of your civilian industry, which of course starts in the front and in Leningrad and all these places, and you are just being pushed everywhere. What do you do?
Well, what you don't do is ignore Italy, because Italy still has absolutely nothing coming for them. They just haven't been noticed still.
And this is exactly what Italy's done before. This is what they've done time and again. They are. This is the same thing that that this exact Kaiserreich team tried to do to the USSR in their own semifinal, where they had Iraqi camels coming in from this exact same position, or rather somewhere relative to it, and push south. And they are literally getting gamed by their own trick. They are not able to contain it because the Soviets don't have the infantry for it. They're spawning new divisions, but they must be under strength, and they are.
And the Soviets are now also negative in oil. Well, going negative in oil. Although they can probably just get that in from the US. Speaking of which, where's their